So there are infinite amount of problems when it comes to the problems that are in Kentucky. There's a middle class, so there are a lot of folks in Kentucky that are doing okay, but there's also an underclass, and there's an unhealthy class, and a meth class, and there's just a various assortment of colorful characters. So Matt Bevin, he had recently blamed, no, let me take that back. Matt Bevin didn't recently blame Marshall County high school shooting that happened 3 years ago. Gabe Parker killed 2 students, injured 14 others. And so right afterwards, Matt Bevin said that it was because of the pornography in the video games. That's the reason why Gabe Parker, went ahead and hurt those kids. Now, that just seems... the porn in the video games, right? It's the porn in the video games. He could have been more far removed, from reality with that remark. So when the Republicans usually say mental health, right, and we need to do mental health, but they don't ever finance mental health. So he's, I guess, evolving past just saying, oh, they're crazy. We should put them in a mental health place. Now he's saying, it's porn and video games. It's the damn pornography and them whippersnappers. The porn and the video. So Super Mario Brothers, right? I would think what Super Mario Brothers makes you want to pound some bricks and smash some, Oompa Loompa, Goombas, some Goombas. Maybe Grand Theft Auto. But then, Grand Theft Auto, it has a realistic ending, so you can't, So, he's going to blame porn and video games. He couldn't be far, it's just like they're just fishing out of a hat. There's like, what was the reason? Well, it must be the moon and the tides. It makes about as much sense as, porn and video games. So, this also is a conversation for Democrats and liberals, too, because I am pro-Second Amendment. I'm pro-Second Amendment because I love my freedoms. I love being American, and we have 73 freedoms. You're going to rip up one of them. What other freedoms you're going to rip up? And then also, people have a right to self-defense. People have a right to self-defense. Self-defense is intelligence. So you're just going to leave people to, the mercy of chance? Oh, yeah, just leave them up to the mercy of chance. So... There's many things that we could consider when a school shooting happens, and we should think about these things, and we need to advocate for, fixing this culture, for fixing this, what's going on here. So we have a lot of homeless people. There's a lot of callousness, right? It's a Christian nation, yet we let people sleep on the goddamn streets. The land of plenty can't build a little tiny shelter or something. My God, it cost $5 billion to build a big tower. Trump wants a Trump tower. We'll get a Trump tower of homeless, people. You want a goddamn wall for $5 billion. You could have, fixed homelessness. So homelessness is a epidemic in all, of America. So it's in Kentucky as well as Kansas and Nebraska. Capitalism is a dog-eat-dog system. You have to get a job. You have to make money somehow in America, and it's all on you to do it. If you don't do it, well, say la fuck a V. Some sink, some swim. So it creates, again, more callousness, more distance, more hardened. Don't care about the homeless because capitalism says, they got to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And so capitalism is a problem. Child abuse and elder abuse. So just abuse of all kinds, but child abuse directly. You don't see the connection between violence in the home and violence in society. That's the reason why nobody should be beating their kids or nobody should be hitting their kids, because if that neighbor, oh, that's my kid, I get to hit my kid if I want to. Okay, and then that kid goes out and shoots my kid. Well, fuck that. You need to not be hitting your kids. You can raise children without hitting them. You're very lazy. What a lazy way to raise children. Poverty. There's a lot of poverty all over the place. 17%. Kentucky has 17% poverty. So maybe, just getting sick of the poverty. Broken judiciary. So there's no justice. You have, all these people getting paid just millions of dollars, essentially, after, 5 years. Judges get $130,000. So you're going to make these folks millionaires and give them a lot of power, but they don't actually give a shit about justice. They don't actually give a shit about, making sure that people are treating each other right and resolving disputes as a non-biased third party. You have to have a lawyer to, you know, even sort of make a dent, sort of be, you know, get taken serious. If you don't have a lawyer because you're poor, right, or maybe, you know, you're being terrorized every single day because you're getting abused in the house, and maybe you're living out in the streets. So capitalism, homelessness, child abuse, poverty, broken judiciary, out-of-control cops. There's, you know, we're going to make killing a cop a hate crime in Kentucky on top of it being a felony, right? It's already a felony. And you got the president calling for the death penalty. So just for the police, though, what about regular citizens? I mean, if justice is eye for an eye, that's not just extended to just the police officers, but it would be extended to everybody. So, you know, that's, you ever consider that? All the violence, you know, that's in society, the broken judiciary, so the cops get away with murder, literally get away with murder, and then you're going to tell me you're a moral person, you care about life, you're pro-life, huh? But you don't give a shit about these cops who, you know, oh, what? It's their word versus them, dead men don't tell tales, right? Shoot first, ask questions later, and then buried in the grand jury, and then the people don't, you know, demand any better. You got an out-of-control military. We're essentially a military-industrial complex society. We're an oil company with a bunch of soldiers. We're an oil company with security forces. So that's, you know, that's our American society. And so if you look at the out-of-control military, out-of-control cops, so you got violence on a macro scale, violence on a micro scale, you know, in the house, in society, domestically and internationally. And there's no social safety net, right? So you're homeless, you fall through, then that's it, you know, the c'est la fucking vie. And then, how about this one? How about totalitarian schools? This would also be a reason. So he's saying, oh, you know, telling the teachers to get back to work, but he's against public education. He's for charter schools. He's for religious schools. So I like that he's, you know, a lot of times it's the Christian right that actually says, hey, we need to think about education differently, and we do need to think about education differently. So totalitarian schools, you got, you know, there's the Board of Education is elected, but as soon as they're elected, they choose the superintendent. Superintendent hires principals, principals hires teachers, and then it's straight up and down hierarchy, right? Superintendent, principal, teacher, and then the children are on the bottom. So they're being told what to do, shut up, sit down, they have no power, they're not making any money, they're not being taken serious. There are very few children's rights. So, totalitarian schools, you consider that too. There's a lot of problems in society, but just to sit there and say, oh, we need to pass gun laws, you know, that could help somewhat, but the shooting in Denver, the red flag bill, there was a couple red flags that was up, so perhaps the red flag bill, if it was enacted, could have helped out, but the background checks, the gun show loophole, and the assault rifle ban, none of those would have worked. All you went ahead and banned bump stocks, huh? So you don't have no bump stocks. They didn't use bump stocks. They didn't use assault rifle. They used pistols. They had clean backgrounds. They came up from a good upbringing in a nice suburbs with a nice, you know, family living, going to a private school. So they're going to a charter school in Denver. This is Denver. So none of those things would have worked. Stronger background checks in a corrupt society. If you have stronger, you know, background checks, if you don't fix the judiciary, then that means you can take the victim and make it worse, right? Make sure they have even less power than what they had to begin with, and then allow the perpetrator to continue perpetrating. So you're going to sit there, you know, just pass this law and that law, and then it is an attack on the Second Amendment, freedom. Give me a break. The reason why we have the Second Amendment is because the government cannot oppress an armed population. They would be afraid to, and that's where we want them to be. We want them to make sure that they do good by us. So that's the whole point of the Second Amendment. So if you're not going to consider the problems of homelessness, the capitalism, and the callousness, and the child abuse, and the violence inside the house, and the violence on elders, and the violence that the police use, out-of-control police. I saw a video where the dog was just biting this guy who was just sitting there. You're not going to consider the poverty? Well, you got money, and you're middle class. You don't give a fuck about poverty. You don't give a fuck about homelessness. You're capitalist. You're making money. You don't give a shit about child abuse. Hell, if the teachers probably love that the parents beat up their children because then they're more compliant and more obedient. So totalitarian schools, violent society, no social safety net, broken judiciary. There's some things you could consider. Porn and video games, nah, that's some bullshit. Passing, gun control laws, I say no to that because for many reasons, I already mentioned it, but also empowerment. So, you have victims and they're, out there isolated by themselves, and then you're going to sit there and say they can't defend themselves. You're going to take the little bit, of power that they have. So, until you consider all those issues, I don't even want to hear you talk about, gun control to me. If you can ignore all those issues, you have a privileged life. Nice, privileged life. Now, this was about Jeff Young. Did I have time to talk? Okay, so Jeff Young, he is one of the best candidates that Kentucky has to offer. And I was talking about Matt Bevin, so this ties in with Kentucky. So all those issues are, issues across the United States, which means either the U.S. needs to fix them or the state governments need to fix them. So Jeff Young is very impressive. I think I'm actually going to do a different video on this. But, so yeah, there's 10 or 9 other issues that we need to focus on and fix before I, ever take you serious about what the hell you're talking about. I was talking to some people, they didn't even know the amendments. They didn't even know what a constitutional convention was. And then they said, oh, you're just trying to run an agenda. Yeah, I got an agenda. That's right, for freedom. I got an agenda to make sure we all get to the promised land. That's my agenda. So the constitutional convention would work. If you're being serious, right, if you want to get rid of guns, get rid of the Second Amendment. You can do that by constitutional convention. You could also do it by amendment. Those are the only 2 ways you can do it. So if you just want to put a couple dents in it here and there and just allow kids to have handguns, that shooting in Denver is going to happen. I'm not sure what about that Marshall High School, what gun he had used, if it was a handgun or assault rifle. So yeah, I'm going to come back. More to come.